Hey guys, this is Chauncey with Good Music to Know. We have another episode of Session Stories. Today, joined with us, we have Mo Van Zandt. Very excited to deep dive into some of her projects and singles that she has out at the moment. So thank you so much for joining. When I first came across your music, I think it was in between a reel on Instagram. And the first thing I thought of was, this feels very otherworldly. I automatically thought of old school 90s Dior. And it was just like, who is this person?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for enjoying it, and the things that you are comparing it to are my favorite things. Like, it's really cool that it's coming through, like Bjork, the 90s. World building is like probably the number one thing I like to do with my music.
So diving into your latest release, Aporia, I believe the actual meaning of it is like a rhetorical device used to express essentially pretend doubt. Does that exact meaning tie into the name of the single?
Yeah, so Aporia means from a really nice philosopher that I like, Derrida. It is about doubt. It's about, I actually re-looked at it for this interview, but it's kind of when you look deeply enough at your position on an argument, you're able to doubt it, and it's kind of a sign of growth that you've looked so deeply, and you might be able to feel almost proud or joyful to reach this understanding and kind of embrace the complexity of and the non-duality of life. I learned the word recently. It was like an old Greek word, and I wanted to write about a chemical version of empathy. To try and understand people on the other side of, let's say, politics, people in my life. And yeah, I kind of wrote this science fiction song with this drug called Aporia. You could maybe imagine you could like hook yourself up to someone you don't understand, take this, and then like completely understand each other. And I was like, oh, that would kind of be the solution for our times.
Very cool. And then I think there was a second song on the single, which I absolutely adore this song, Light Up My Sky. When I first heard this song, if I close my eyes, I don't know what it is about this track, but it feels like you're being like transported to this like otherworldly realm. It is so magical in the beginning. I actually wrote down one of the lyrics because I wanted to ask you about it. So one of the lyrics in Light Up My Sky is, when I think of you, it rains. Is this particular lyric, is it about the loss of the individual? Is it about unrequited love? Just curious.
Thanks. That's really nice what you said about it. And it's originally from my partner. And these songs, they both take place in an album that'll be coming out early next year. It's in a world where supernatural things are happening. I'm always trying to use science fiction to talk about things that are happening now from another angle, like climate change. There's strange things happening here. So in this world, I'm like, oh, what if every time I thought of this person I love, it started raining? Just kind of kind of a romantic fantasy. And yeah, that track was really interesting because at first it had drums. It almost had like dance drums underneath it. But my co-producer, his artist name is Cocktail Party Effect, Eric Baldwin, he took all the drums out and put it into this super ethereal place. And in Aporia, we worked together to make that IDM drum section. Between the two of us, when and where to put drums, big or non-existent, has been a fun part of the process of making this album. Yeah.
This is probably going to sound super cliche, but when I listen to So Disco, there's something about this song that just makes me feel invincible. I don't know why, but I was listening to it today and I was like, yeah, I'm badass.
Let's go.
Such a good song. Like, I love the lyric I loved especially was, it was like, drink in hand, loosen my tie. And I think to myself, that's so disco. So I wanted to ask you, what does it mean to be disco? Is it like a certain type of embodiment? Is it like a feeling? Like, what does it mean to be like, that's so disco?
I mean, like, besides the pieces in the song that you're like pulling out, I think it means you're kind of loose. This character that I was pulling from, or kind of rewriting, comes from this video game called Disco Elysium. It's actually someone who, I don't know, it's kind of a character that's a little dangerous to themselves with how much they party and like, I don't know, they're kind of funky. In the music video I wear, like one of my favorite shirts that has this like giant 70s collar and like a funky print, and you know, you gotta loosen your tie and I don't know, let loose and be disco. But some of it's a little cliche too, like it's kind of making fun of parties. Maybe there's a lot of things that are cliche about parties. Like
so speaking of sound inspirations, I know I mentioned earlier that your sound reminds me of Bjork a bit. Are there any other music inspirations that you have, or other artists that you draw from for creative inspiration?
Yeah, I would say Tom York for sure. And who else? Honestly, I'm so into Dorian Electra right now, like how big they go. And they're Texas artists too. So anything with like big theater, big fanfare. And who else? As far as like Berlin artists, I'm like such a huge fan of Laura Prema. Yeah, those are my favorites.
Very nice. Mm-hmm. So I did a bit of research, and it seems that music has been a big part of your life for a while now, even before you moved to New York. So what got you started into music? What's the story there?
I was just one of those classic cases where my mom started me with piano, like really young, since 3. And then from piano, I did piano through high school, and then I tried to pick up drums. Oh, that seemed like the next most fun thing. You know, I actually got into it because of Guitar Hero, or that Guitar Hero, and then Rock Band. Yeah, like, oh, I think this translates. I think this like video game skill will translate to the real drums. And I got some drums, studied a bit in Austin and a bit in Rome, and then I was drumming in bands. But music's been a part of my life since the beginning, and through dance as well. Yeah.
Guitar Hero was the best. Like my go-to song was always the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Like just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, maps all the way.
Maps.
I feel like that's where I got a real music education, was Guitar Hero. Like my family wasn't super into rock. They were like in choirs, but I got my rock education through those video games. Yeah.
If we were to look at your Spotify right now, what do you have on repeat? Or what's a song that you have right now that you like keep going back to? 2 albums this year I am repeating right now, and they just are kind of fresh right now. Nowhere, which is like a fast jazz fusion band, and Bjork and Radiohead, that's perpetually my whole life. That's always up there. Genesis is probably going to be my album of the year, or like my artist of the year. Yeah. And one more album right now is this one by Callahan and Witcher. Okay. It's like a fascinating like Y2K style critique of everything going on in the music industry. It's fascinating. Yeah. New music for me to check out. So this is awesome. What do you ideally hope listeners take away from your music? Like, what kind of experiences do you hope that they take away from it?
I mean, what you said before, like, it makes me so happy that you feel kind of transported and you feel like we're in another world. That is where a lot is coming from, is from kind of building a sci-fi, science fiction, near future world where I can tell what looks like new stories from the lens of science fiction. Yeah, but are really personal stories in my life about political division, a little bit about climate change, queer stories, and a groove is another major thing. Like I hope you can feel like funk, groove, and transportation. And that's what I would love people to take away.
Yeah. So then I have another question. So this is more about experimental music itself. So as we know, like experimental music, like it tends to disrupt orthodox musical structures, creating, I guess, what other people would call like unusual sounds. So just curious, like what does experimental music mean to you, or what do you even think maybe the main purpose of experimental music is?
Yeah, I think it's nice to push a boundary. Like a lot of the things we're experimenting with is combining pop and storytelling with experimenting with many genres like trip hop, combining it with kind of sound effect design as well. There's some explosions actually in the album coming up combining all of these influences into one piece. That's how we experiment. I would say, Charlie and I, all the things we like: cinema, bass music, storytelling. Yeah.
Very cool. It's a fusion of everything.
Yeah.
Have you guys already picked out a name for the new album coming out next year?
Yeah, it's called Tear Radio Thriller.
Oh, that's amazing. What's the story behind the name, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, throughout the album, it'll be a lot of my voice coming through a radio, saying what's happening in this kind of apocalyptic world situation. So that it should play out like stories from a radio thriller, kind of like how War of the Worlds was told through a radio. And then Tear is what's happening in this science fiction world, is that there are kind of tears in the universe happening. It represents kind of the fact that politically and through social media, we're seeing a tear in reality that people can see one world or another world, kind of almost choose their adventure. And it's kind of a science fictionalization of these tears in reality that are happening in real life. Yeah.
That's really cool that it's still this like apocalyptic world, but you're still bringing in social elements into it as well. So I love that. I love that combination. I don't know, for some reason, when you mentioned the tear, it made me think of the uncanny valley, which I think is a big thing at the moment with AI growing, where everything, yeah, have you heard about this theory where it kind of looks like us, but it doesn't. So we're a bit distrusting of it and we're kind of like, oh, what's happening here? But yeah, that's an amazing concept. Super, super excited to hear when it's finished.
Thank you. Yeah, I read the other day, like, women have used science fiction novels and fiction to express philosophy, and like that's kind of where they were allowed to historically express their ideas about philosophy, because it was that type of academia and like writing, philosophical writers. It was closed off and gatekept to women. I just learned this after kind of writing my own science fiction album, and I don't know, I want to be part of a lineage like this, or like a legacy like this. Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I guess if you had like any final words for your fans or listeners, anything that you would like to leave them with?
I mean, this is my first album. I'm like super happy for Berliners or people from anywhere to take a listen, and we'll be playing a big show in Berlin. I don't know. Thanks so much for listening. Like, this is my first time around, and I'm so happy you called and asked about the music and that you like the music.
No, massive fan. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining. As you know, like, this is still kind of an early series, so I appreciate you joining.
Yeah, massive support. Like, I mean, good luck with everything. Yeah.
Writing poetry as the sun burns out.